Ori, Johan, Frank, I hope you're all good. Apologise for being a little bit tardy, but you know what? We move. Yellow card for Cameron. There's some stuff we've got to get to, eh? I'm going to go 45 minutes no longer. Proper chairmanship from Cameron today. Let me have a quick sense check to make sure that we're all mic'd up. No more mute settings this week. Oh, life is a chaos, isn't it, sometimes? But what's never, ever chaotic is the weird and quirky world of F1. Never, ever chaotic, is it? Ever? Yeah, said without tongue very firmly in cheek. Go on then, 45 minutes or less. We're going to talk about everything that you need to know for the Brazilian Grand Prix, what's been going on in the news cycle that is F1, and some other thoughts, because I keep having nightmares about Lewis Hamilton being in his prime or not, or being in his prime still and still getting beat by Max Verstappen. This is my concern, and whilst everybody's talking about sprint quali and how to solve that, of course we will talk about that on this session, as much as we'll get to your questions. What's going on, TJ? What's going on, NASA? We'll get to all that nonsense, but we like to forecast, right? We like to get to the proper key, the proper core issues, one of which I think is going to be how do the rest of them catch up to Red Bull in 2024. That for me is the topic that we should be talking about. What else is there in F1? We're not going to do the lazy, low-hanging journalistic tropes. Like those are for the birds. Let's leave that to the also rans. That's why I want to get to the proper topics. Go on then. First and foremost, of course, highest in terms of importance, or the highest on the agenda today, has to be Lewis Hamilton's dress code, eh? God, I cannot even say that with a straight face. Twitter goes absolutely bonkers. He could walk through there in knickers and Twitter would just go crazy the same way. I mean, peddlers, you want me to be honest? It's not for me. I'll be honest. I'm far too untrendy, far too grey-bearded, far too die-hard an F1 fan to give a fudge about what Lewis Hamilton is wearing. You know, I'll give you a joke. I sent that to my mum, and my mum was like, I can't even read on air what my mum reacted to that. She's just like me, Mumsy Cameron is just far too old school to even be fussed about what Lewis Hamilton is wearing. Granted, I will say this, I do like the back. The homage to Ayrton Senna, you can see, it's a very iconic picture. That I don't hate the back of it, but you would not catch me dead in that. But what does Cameron F1 know about? You don't come here to get fashion tips from Cameron F1. Look what I'm wearing at the moment. This is an abomination. But again, Twitter loves it, man. It's weird that that we live in a world where Twitter, that more talked about on this Brazilian race weekend than driving and compound and technical information and whether Mercedes or Ferrari or McLaren can catch the bulls that are ready in 2024. More talked about than all those in the weird and wonderful world that is Twitter is what Lewis Hamilton is turning up on Thursday. I think that's chaos. But you know what? Horses for courses. We move. But I know what you guys come here for. A terrible flow viz. Oh no, James. You know what's crazy? I will say this about Lewis. I do feel like Lewis is a bit not disenfranchised, but I see him in the press conference. You can see that all the other drivers kind of go one way and then he goes the other. Now, it's easy to chalk that up to him being the only one that looks different on the grid. But I think it's more than that, being honest. I think he is fundamentally different. None of them, okay, Yuki likes to dress well, but none of them really rock up in the crazy, like, top of the fashion curve stuff that he does. Just a bit different. He's got different nature. And you know what? Fair cop to Lewis Hamilton for embracing his difference. He doesn't care. He doesn't care. He's 7-time champion. What does he give a fudge about what everybody else thinks? But I just find it interesting. No body language expert by any means, but I find it interesting when I look at the dynamics between the drivers in the cool down room and the press conference. There's just not They're just different, aren't they? Some of them. What's going on, Will.i.am? Yes, we are going in. Can't deny that Lewis knows how to grab attention and get people chatting. NASA, you know what the joke is? I don't even think he's there. I just think that's who he is. But it's funny the way that the other drivers like turn their nose up at that, because a lot of them are like your classical old school drivers. I'm here on a race weekend to get behind the steering wheel and put my foot on a brake pedal and a throttle pedal. Done. The other bods aren't interested in all these other shenanigans. But again, maybe that's the role of the modern F1 driver. Techie, isn't it? Go on then. What do we need to know about Brazil? So highlights, 71 laps. And again, remember, this is sprint race weekend. Put out a tweet yesterday. Cameron F1, your boy, has sold for all things sprint race format. Here have been the quarrels hitherto. It's too disconnected. Race quali needs to be closer to race day. Can't have race quali on bloody Friday and then the sprint shootout on Saturday, because by the time you get to Sunday and race day, nobody remembers what happened in quali. You need to pair these up. Too long, too boring, too samey, too monotonous, too procession-y is the sprint shootout. It needs to be more of a spectacle. People have also complained, how are you going to have an event that I must watch on Friday when I'm at work? It doesn't make sense. How do you cure for that? Well, I've got all the answers for you, peddlers. Here we go. James, I haven't even seen the Backstreet Boys thing, and I'm not even sure that I want to. If I turn my nose up at Lewis's thing, how am I going to react to George's? Fair play, George, for trying, though. He understands that there is commercial value in it. How do we fix for sprint race format? Here's how we do it. And check out the Twitter, Cameron F1 YT, if you want to see the text. Friday, do FP1. And again, one of the other complaints that I forgot, FP1. FP1 is too little. FP1, 2 and 3 is too much. Do the Goldilocks thing then, straight in the middle. FP1 on Friday, and then you do a reverse grid sprint race on the Friday afternoon. Here's what the reverse grid is on. You can't do quali and then do reverse grid. It doesn't make sense, right? Because everybody's going to bloody sandbag all over the shop to try and get. But do the reverse grid based upon the current standings in the World Drivers' Championship, because nobody's going to sandbag for that. That's your first day. Your second day, FP2 again to give the guys, and Parc Fermé is still not in effect just yet. FP2 give the guys some an additional chance to perfect their setups. After FP2, qualifying as per usual on the Saturday, and then you go straight into the race on Sunday. Done. You are welcome, FIA. Some common sense. This isn't rocket science. Just let's have a think about that. For me is the bloody solve. That way you get two spectacles, because I know that the commercial value is in additional events, additional races, all that good stuff. Hence why you have a sprint race. But you need to make it interesting. You can't do a reverse grid by having a qualifying session, because it just makes no sense. Everybody's going to sandbag all over the shop with a view to nail a pole. So do it based on the World Drivers' Championship standings. Done. FIA, send that check in the post. Chaps, you are welcome. I don't know why. I don't know who's in the room making all these decisions that has just a bit of common sense, Just a bit of common sense. This is, I say that to say that this is a race weekend. Let me see what Will.i.am's got to say. All the drivers have their interest. They go, I'll get to that, Will.i.am. Otherwise, I will keep going back and forth. Save you if you've got some big ones that you want me to touch on. Jump on the community tab. I'll save 10 minutes at the end, and we'll get through those. What else do you need to know? 71 laps, 305 kilometers. That's a lot. It's funny the way that the laps doesn't necessarily correlate to what you'd imagine the circuit length, the total length traveled, right? 305 kilometers race distance, circuit length 4.3 kilometers, lap record 110. So listen, and the compounds are interesting. I feel like they've bought harder compounds here, C2, C3, C4, than did at Mexico. Going to be interesting. Also, worthy of note, get these facts and figures right. Max Verstappen has been given, the odds checkers, the experts, give him 65% chance. In fact, you know what? Let me not misquote. I've got it up. 75% chance of winning. That's humongous. A humongous odds-on favourite is that chap on Sunday. Fastest lap, fastest qualifier even 62% of the time Max Verstappen gets it. Critically, for what we're about to talk about, 65% of the time there will be a safety car on Sunday. Critical, right? Critical. Let's have a look at the course now. It's a weird course, this, isn't it? It is a weird course in that it looks like ostensibly there's so much time to be gained in a straight line. Look at sector 3 in red. And again, that's where you're going to do most of your overtaking as per Lewis Hamilton in 2021. I will say this though, it's a bit of a misdirection one, isn't it? Because apparently, if the teams are to believe, most of the time that you're going to get gained is in sector 2, that blue sector. So for some weird, it's a weird trick of the eye around here. Because you're looking at it, you're like, right, I'm going to go super low downforce, Monza-esque, but all of these bods, per their wings, have gone over medium to high downforce. It's techie, and I think what factors into that is that it's high altitude again, which renders most of this the aerodynamic efficient cars a little less aerodynamically efficient. James, we need to bring back Maldon. Oh my gosh, you guys are chaos. You guys are absolute chaos. So it's a weird track, this. It is a weird track. I expect Lewis loves it around here, doesn't he? I expect him to go very well around here. Max Verstappen over the past couple of years, lest we not forget, 2016. Yeah, he's 2016 showing around here in the wet. So he's not bad around here either, is he? Those are the drivers. And again, it's one of those where you get, Peter Windsor will always talk about your fast flowy circuits and your ability to turn in and V-shape the corner. I don't think, because this is so fast and flowy, I don't think the guys that V the corner off are necessarily going to come to the fore. I think it's going to be a track that favours, like I've said already, Max, your Lewises, your Charles. Those dudes will, and Lando a little bit as well. Those dudes, 9 times out of 10 around here, will outperform their teammates because they like to, as well as being able to V-shape the corner and get the power on very early, like a Checo Perez or a Carlos Sainz, who, by the way, will be good around Sector 2. I think there's also a lot of time to be gained around the fast flow bit, Sector 1 and Sector 3. So it's almost a bit of a Jekyll and Hyde of a track, this. Very, very tacky. Keen to see how they get on. This courtesy of my guy, Blake Break F1. Go and buy that chap a coffee on his website because he's a legend and the best as far as data analytics in the space. This is just showing you what the strategies were for tyres last race, or last year at least. So Georgie Russell, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be soft, medium, soft. Georgie Russell nailed it, didn't he? Bloody Nora. In no small part due to a cheeky crash between Sir Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen earlier. That's probably what you'd expect here. I don't think it'd be any different. Right, I want to show you this. Let's get some news and then we'll chat it out for the next half an hour. Jos Verstappen. Papa de Max bromeo que podría reemplazar a Checo Perez, ¿por qué no? This is chaos. This is chaos, peddlers. Right, let's get past the Maldonado. You guys are killing me. Right, here's what Jos Verstappen has said in his infinite wisdom. He joked that he could replace Checo Perez. Flipping Nora. They just like to just put the knife in him. Can you not give that chap a break? Can you not give that chap a break? Per Fox Sports Mexico. And then we get footage of our guy, Jos Verstappen, stacking it. You know,
avisa,
I
Tonin,
wanted to do
avisa.
a deep dive and see
bien, John?
how old this footage is. I think they're,
Vale.
trolling him.
Verstappen, bien, okay?
Jos Verstappen. Went away and found this probably old footage of Jos Verstappen stacking it on the back of the fact that he said that he Perez. How very dare they? How very dare they, man? Way to kick a man when he's down, eh? I think that's really, really horrible. I do not like that one bit. Do not like that one bit. But hey, We move. I digress. Max Verstappen as well. Okay, in the press conference, there was another couple of bits. They were talking about sprint qualifying or the sprint format because Naomi Schiff, the legend that is, had asked the question across each press conference, didn't she? Max Verstappen's response was legendary. I'm going to try and bring it up for you super quickly. That was one of the ones that I failed to prepare for. 1 second, let me get it. Because it was quite funny. It was quite funny from the Dutchman. A bit sarcastic to say the least. Go on then, let's pull this one up.
It's been absolutely fantastic. So much fun.
Would you care to
I get
elaborate?
so excited by having a sprint again. I'm all for it.
Anything more? Okay. Lance, please, your thoughts?
I hope you guys can hear that. Drop me a 1 just in case. Max, yeah, mate. Sarcastic, any? Initially, when I watched it, I was like, surely you can't be being this sarcastic about a format that the FIA and the FOM are so clearly trying to push. He just doesn't care, does he? It's very lovely. It's absolutely fantastic. I'm very pleased with it. You couldn't over-egg the sarcasm any much. They don't like the sprint format, do they? Which is why Cameron F1's got the bloody solution. Reverse grid it, not per a little noddy qualifying session that can be flexed and gamed. Do it per the World Driver Championship standing. There is your fix. You are welcome, F1. You're welcome. Yeah, nobody wants to talk about it, do they? I think that's why Naomi very cleverly asked the question, isn't it? I don't know. Go on then, peddlers. Let's have a chat. And Alonso, but oh bloody no, we talked about this ad infinitum yesterday with me and Shez. Now let's leave Lewis Hamilton's prime for a bit. I don't want to touch it again because that's going to be the conversation going forward. But you know what? I've done it to death. Check out the shakedown with Shez because it was techie. Max Verstappen. I see myself. Oh my gosh, Will I am. You don't half love to take people out of their name, eh? Go on then. Let me get these questions up. And again, remember, every time I do these, 24 hours before, there will be a drop on the community tab. If you've got a question or anything you want to touch on, anything at all within the F1 space or otherwise, that will be the place for you to do it. Right, let's have a go. Let's have a go. And again, it was a wicked episode of The Shakedown if you haven't already watched it with Shez. Very, very decent, where we talked about a lot of things. Lewis Hamilton's prime. Is Lewis Hamilton still in his prime? You know what? Let me check. I don't like to use these poll things, but let me drop a quick poll in there. Is Lewis still in his prime? You guys let me know because you're infinitely more hip to these things than I. It's techie. It's a bloody conversation. It's going to keep coming up. I'm telling you what, this is one of those ones. Let's check back in this time next year and we will have a better read on it. 83% of you saying he's still in his prime. Bloody no. We beg to differ. 75, 73. So remember, peddlers, the question I'm asking isn't whether Lewis Hamilton is still good or even if he's still capable of winning himself a championship in 2024 or beyond. I'm asking you, is he in his, at the age of 38, going nearly 39, is he in his physical prime? 69%, are you telling me, yeah? Techie. Enron says Max's sarcasm wasn't really necessary. Yeah, mate, I hear you, Enron. I hear you. Right, let me get to these questions. You guys, I hope you guys are looking forward to this. This should be a corker of a Grand Prix. I'm telling you, if it's bubbled over the past couple of race weekends, I think this one should pop. It has the potential to, because Brazil always, yeah, man, is in his prime. He just needs the car. JBH, here's why. All right, I said I wasn't going to talk about it, but you guys have. I put the poll out there, so we may as well touch on it. Here's where I am with Lewis Hamilton. I'm a sports fan before I'm an F1 fan, I'll be honest. And I've never seen an athlete in their prime at 38 years old. Lewis Hamilton would be the first that I've seen. And that's not to say that I've seen or come into contact with all sports stars that have ever done anything at the highest level in history ever. That's not where we are. But I will say this, it would be unprecedented. That's not to say, again, that doesn't fly in the face by any means of Lewis being able to win a championship or being able to beat Max Verstappen or still being able to do incredible things. Because, I mean, look no further than the Mexico Grand Prix and his overtake up the inside of Charles Leclerc. Super, super brave, by the way. But I think it's fool's gold to even expect the dude at the age of 38 in a young man's game in F1 to then say that he's in his prime. Nah. And people point to Tom Brady and LeBron James as proof positive that, you know what, you can go longer, you can go deeper now. There's medicine, there's research, there is stuff that you can do, to prolong your career deep into your 40s. And again, I'm not saying anything about that. I'm not saying that that's not true. What I'm speaking to very specifically is whether Lewis Hamilton is in his prime at the age of 38. He would be the first one, Pedlars. I'll just say that. I'll say clearly and simply. He'd be the first one that I've seen. In all probability, I don't think he is. But I digress. Well, let's get to your comments then. And there's a couple, Here he is, Will Harris. Who's that chap? Will.i.am. Go on then. Lewis sinks all of his interest into one, so we sees walk around the paddock for a few minutes when he arrives in a different outfit every day. He turned his arrival into a catwalking genius. I think we will see more and more of this in the future, whether it's esports, integration, fashion. Oh, well, I don't hate it, bruv. I don't hate it. I think you're onto something, man. This is the modernization of F1, right? Somebody needed to bring F1 kicking and screaming into the modern age. Somebody did. 21st century and all that, and I don't hate it, but there will always be those who are resistant to change. You heard Martin Brundle talking about how he didn't want the halo instituted as a safety measure because he thought that you'd make the cars look ugly. That's what we're dealing with. Any sport is always resistant to change, especially as far as like the guardians of that sport, whether that's Martin Brundle or Bernie or Michael Shit. Like, all of those people were, well, to a greater or lesser extent, all of those people at some point were always very resistant to change. Anthony LeBron is a brilliant example, man, as far as guys that are still doing well. But nobody's going to tell me that LeBron is in his prime now. What, because he's just more experienced? What? Nah, not having that in his prime. Well, we'll see. We'll revisit this. This is one that we can revisit. I had a conversation with a couple of mates a few months ago about Victor Wembanyama. And both of those were telling me that stop getting so high, Cameron, relax yourself, wind your neck in. I said, you know what, every once in a while somebody comes on and moves the goalposts as far as what we'd expect from an athlete in any given sport. Victor is one such athlete, right? There's no equalizer for that type of physiology. 8-foot wingspan. What? The wingspan of an 8-foot tall person. You can see the players that he's playing alongside and against are just like, they're having to like recalibrate what's possible. Like the way he's blocking from these impossible angles and distances, stealing the ball. Dunno, man. Dunno. Sometimes there comes along a sports disruptor. Lewis Hamilton was one. And I think Max Verstappen is one as well. And Lewis Hamilton won on and off the track, of course. And I think that's what we're talking to there, Will. Here's my take, says Will. Very smart, Will, to get there. I love what you've done there, bruv. Here's my take. All of the drivers have their interests and passions. If you listen, Will's done the wise tax avoidance thing. If you want me to talk about something as a priority, jump onto the community tab and put the question there. Half of these, I love you guys going back and forth in the chat, and I'm grateful ad infinitum each and every single time. But sometimes You're not going to be able to get to each and every single one of them. If you got something that you want raised, community tab is the place to be. As per Will. Cam, here's my take. All of the drivers have their interests and passions. The minute Tom asked Max about his esports collab with Red Bull, he got super giddy. Yeah, it was cool. You know what, brother? You're right. Well, each of them, I suppose I've alluded to it already. Lewis is a one of one and he has his own interests. I think the old guard on the F1 grid they will poo-poo any sort of fashion interest, like fashion or music, because in their mind, quote unquote, drivers aren't supposed to be interested in those things. And here's where Lewis kind of stomps on the door, right? Smashes it in, because he's never gonna, since he's escaped the stereotypical shackles that were Ron Dennis's McLaren, he's just gonna do his own thing. He's gonna be himself. Everything else be done. What does he need? What does he care what I think or anybody else is? Going to do his own thing. But yeah, and still interesting that those younger drivers, the likes of Lando and like Charles, you can see them just looking at him and being like, bloody Nora, it's a bit much, isn't it? They're just so old school in the way that they think and the way they behave and the clothes that they wear. And I don't think that's changing, despite Lewis Hamilton's best endeavours. I don't think that's about to change anytime soon. Takes a while to change a sport, and it's an attitude in that sport, eh? And F1 is no different. Go on then, let's see if we've got any other comments. Angry Alonso. Oh, that's what we were talking about in the shakedown. So there was, for those of you on Twitter, there was, I keep cursing. This is the dichotomy on Twitter, right? I keep cursing Twitter and saying how toxic it is. But where do I get all my news from? If not Twitter. And I only say that to say this. Albert Fabrega, broadcaster, Spanish broadcaster, Spanish. Is he a broadcaster come journo? Probably. But he put a tweet out earlier in the week saying, listen, I heard something, a rumour in the paddock. I hope it's not true. It'd be really sad. And it just went bonkers. It went bonkers because a lot of people depend on Albert to report their news reliably and truthfully. And when he kind of lent into it just went viral. It was bonkers. Everyone was like, what is it? Is Alonso leaving? Is Alonso going to Red Bull? Is Checo leaving? Is Checo retiring? Has Max kicked out Checo? Is Jos Verstappen the new? Like, it was just properly bonkers. Is Lance Stroll selling Aston Martin? People were just wondering what the news was. Turns out, more than likely, it's potentially Audi sacking off their bid to become the next team, the new team in 2026, potentially, or the new engine provider. That's what people are saying it is. But it's just bonkers the way Albert felt. I struggled with it, right? Because said to Shez yesterday on Shakedown, I don't like to mix my meats. If I'm going to hear, I'm going to A or Albert Fabrega for my news, and I want it delivered reliably and in timely fashion, then I want my news. I don't want speculation and rumour from Albert. It's mixing my meats, mismanaging my expectation, and I don't like that. I'll be honest. But again, don't hate the player, hate the game. He's done really well off that as Albert Fabrega. Absolutely nailed it. Paid some bills for sure. And who doesn't need to pay some bills in this hyperinflationary era? Techie. Right, let's have a look at any comments. Only one comment I'll try to join, says Ammonium. So yeah, remember as always, before I do these live chats pre-race, make sure to get your comments in beforehand. Right, let's go back and forth. Alonso, interesting. He said that he wasn't too happy. I know that Alonso, I don't know what it is with, I'm speculating. I'm doing an Albert Fabrega. Fernando Alonso has some sort of relationship with Albert Fabrega. I assume the two of them being Spaniards. I assume it's a big reach and a big assumption. And Fernando Alonso came out and said he wasn't too happy at the speculation. Whoever let rip around the speculation that he was potentially going to leave Aston Martin because he's not happy at the machinery, or at least he hasn't been happy at the machinery since the summer break. And Alonso made it very clear that he wasn't happy about that. This is where Albert Fabrega needs to come in and fill the gaps, right? This is where the chap needs to fill the gap. Peter, I hate that I see so many rumour or gossip. Yeah, you know what? Petey, here's the problem with F1 at the moment. Although there are interesting storylines, we haven't got like an inside baseball or like a Shaq and a Charles Barkley. Yeah, of course. A Shaq and a Charles Barkley to kind of pull out those narratives, right? Or even a Stephen A. Smith. That person doesn't exist, or if the person does exist in F1, they exist on YouTube for now. They don't exist in the broadcasting space. So they're struggling to pull out the narratives, hence why people are moaning left, right, and centre, most of whom have come into F1 on the promise of a blockbuster rematch of the 2021 season. Most of those are complaining about the season being boring because the broadcasters aren't like, not necessarily, I don't want to just blame the broadcasters because I love Crofty and I love Martin Brundle, but they don't like, I mean, they have to get Micah Richards and Philly in to try and spruce it up a bit and make it a bit more interesting. If you had Shaq, I mean, I suppose the F1 equivalent of Shaq is Nico Rosberg. Why isn't he on the broadcast every single week? Because he makes it interesting and he gives F1 fans and non-F1 fans around the world a reason to watch F1. And at this time, when Max Verstappen is a gazillion points and 60 seconds down the road from the rest of the field, you kind of need that, don't you? Can't just be so straight-laced. And this is to your point, Will.i.am. Like, it can't be like, at these times you need to embrace change, as at November 2023. Like, you kind of, you know what I mean? It can't just be drive, brake, turn. It's very like, there are other storylines and plot lines to pull out. Speaking of which, there's a really, really good Brawn GP documentary coming out on Hulu. I want to say November the something 10th, maybe November the 14th, maybe. That is going to be epic. For those of you know who are about Brawn GP in 2009, underdog settings, incredible story. Can't wait to see that. The trailer's incredible. Go and check it out. Type in Brawn GP Hulu on YouTube. So sick. 59 of you watching concurrently, do me a favour, smash the like. I'm grateful ad infinitum to each and every single one of you, and I mean that. Properly mean that. Right, Peter said, Sheldon, this is past prime, but tail end of his prime is better. There you go, Sheldon, you've nailed it, bro. I think that I completely agree with that. But is it good enough to win him a world championship, Sheldon? Therein lies the $64,000 question. With Keanu, exactly. With Keanu, it looks incredible, doesn't it? And I don't mind a bit of Keanu either. Flies in the face of superstardom. A humble bloke, notwithstanding his millions. There you go. Thank you, Will.i.am. November the 15th. What is it that most of F1 media is British-based? Commentators, presenters, interviews. Oh, why is it? Sorry. It's a good question, see. I think this is a legacy thing. Because I think historically, I mean, F1 kicked off, F1's first season was in like 1950. And if you look at it back then, okay, so you had like Fangio and Ascari and obviously you had your like continental European drivers in addition to your South American bods. But I think always it's been that way, see? The vast majority of the drivers, as well as the vast majority of teams, have been based out of Britain. It's just driving's like, it's almost like, like you associate rugby with Oceania, like Australia and New Zealand. It's just always been that way. I don't know. As long as I can remember, at least, it's just always, there's always been a ton of British drivers. Plus, lest we forget, to get into F1 drivers aren't just, they'll say that they're the best in the world, but because there is a barrier to entry as far as resource, like I'd love for my little man to become a racing driver. We haven't got that type of bank to fund his career. It's in excess, it's like 200,000-300,000 to just complete one season. Not of an F1 career, by the way, of a feeder formula. Can you imagine, like you fund your little ones? Shout out Joshua Bugembe and his parents because they're smashing it. I need to drop him a line actually, but it's not easy. it is the point that I'm trying to make. You need to have big bank, and luckily for a lot of these British-based drivers, whether that's not so much Lucy's probably the exception to that rule, but your Landos, your Georges, your Jensens, your Jolyon Palmers, like they've all either come from racing heritage and or have sufficient financial backing to get them into the, like, you can't just be good, right? It's not enough. You will find drivers out there, if you given sufficient experience in some corner of the world, who could absolutely be on the F1 good, but just haven't been given chance. That's the sad truth. It's like the 100 meters. This is the difference between like the 100 meters and F1, right? Because there's very little barrier as far as financial circumstances, financial backing to being the 100 meter champion of the world, right? Or the Olympic champion. And F1's very different to that. You can have all the reactions, be able to spot a turn in a braking point, slipstream, understand switchback intrinsically and how to manage a set of tires and handling dynamic feel in the way. You can have all that, but 90% of people would never have been exposed to it, right? They just won't, either they won't have been exposed to it, or they would have been exposed to it and then met that glass ceiling beyond which their financial standing can't take them. I think that's a very long-winded answer to your question, C, but I think that's the two-folded answer. Matthew says, this is very different. Right, let me have Bizzle, what's going on, bruv? Nico and just watch the Sparkfly, James. They need to get, I'd love to see Nico on the more regular, I'll be honest. I will be honest. I would love to see that. I mean, I wouldn't mind Peter Windsor either, to be fair. Can you imagine Peter Windsor and Nico? They'd just be arguing back and forth. 84 of you watching could currently smash the like for me, peddlers. Let me say this. You know, you guys know that I always like to pivot into, I spend all my life watching sport. When I'm not being a dad and a husband, I am watching some sport somewhere or watching some bod talk about it somewhere. So you guys that are mixed martial arts fans, there was two of the biggest names in the sport as far as the broadcasting analyst podcasting side of things had a massive argument on a show called the Mixed Martial Arts Hour. No guesses where the F1 Hour gets its name from. Shout out to Ariel Hawani. But Ariel was arguing with his old mate Shelson, and the two of them, for those of you that don't know about the circumstances, the two of them used to do a show together on ESPN way back in the day called the Ariel and the Bad Guy, it was called. Very different personalities, but that was what made the show great, right? They used to argue about everything mixed martial arts, go back and forth, knock the corners off of each other. It was brilliant. They did a show earlier on in the week where they were arguing. It wasn't a game. This wasn't a work. This looked like a shoot. They were arguing properly, but it went blockbuster. That video is currently done about 500,000 views, and all they were doing is talking about the weekend that was in boxing, that Francis Ngannou ultimately beat, although didn't get the decision, a Tyson Fury. It was brilliant. Where is that? Again, I say all that nonsense to say this. Where is that? Who's having those conversations or those heated debates? In the F1 space, no one is. No one is. I would love. Okay, so Eddie Jordan and David Coulthard do a little podcast. Do a little podcast on the side, and they go do a little bit of back and forth. But who's doing it on the biggest platform? No one. It's just like it's a board meeting, isn't it? It's so boring. Anytime you get like Naomi and Pinks, bless them, and I don't know, Anthony Davidson, who has brilliant knowledge, and Karun, it's just like, they all just agree, and it's all a cure for insomnia. Where are the fire starters? Who's going to get in front of somebody and say, you know what, I disagree with you? And again, this goes to the point that Tomo made in a chat that we had on the F1 Hour last week. Shout out my guy, Tomo. F1 as a sport is like 5 to 10 years, I'd argue probably more, anywhere between 10 and 15 years behind other sport, like the world leading sports. If you're talking soccer in the UK and the US, the way it's covered. Look at CBS Sports, Kate Abdo, Micah Richards, Jamie Carragher, Thierry Henry. They go on there and it's like you watch because you want to see their chemistry and you want to see Kate Abdo crack a joke at Micah Richards and introduce the show by saying, listen, hello and welcome. With me, I have two-time Champions League winner Thierry Henry, Champions League winner Jamie Carragher, a man who never ever played in the Champions League, Micah. Like, it's just brilliant. It's a bit of personality and it's infused really, really nicely. It makes the show and the sport better to watch. Why we've got Sky Sports F1 and all these, like, bloody, it's like too straight-laced for me anyway. Maybe other people feel differently and love a bit of straight-laced around their F1, but not me. Not me. And it's made worse by all the other sports just getting further and further down the road. Football is not missing. I mean, I don't even I've barely watched a ball being kicked in anger for I don't know how long now. But I watch the Jamie Carragher and Roy Keane debate because it's fun. I enjoy it. None of that. No chance in F1. It's Max Verstappen has been brilliant. Lewis Hamilton drove for it. It's all set. It's like, maybe I'm too scathing. I mean, my guy, look at like Tomo and there's like people out there who are nailing this. Your Tomos, your Baxtys, your Nashers, your Shezes. We've got a bit of person. Their wheel knowledge is incredible. Listen, here's what I think. Here's where I think they've messed up. Wheel knowledge and being straight-laced aren't synonyms of each other. There are people out there, a lot of whom I've just named, who have a bit of personality and bring something to the camera and the broadcast, who also have wheel knowledge. Aldas, I'll be having a chat with Aldas next week on the Shakedown, yeah? Aldas's levels... But his wheel knowledge is different, but he's got a bit of personality. Get those guys onto this broadcast, man, because otherwise you're just going to lose viewers. Therein lies my take. Max is great, says Jean. Sean? I think you are underestimating the effect of the 44 in Max's mirrors. Bloody Nora, that's a good I love that. Listen to the radio calls. Max understands the threat. The field doesn't fight him. So it's easy to look perfect. Oh, have we even got time to get deep into that? I don't disagree with what you've just said. And again, Tomo made the point in our chat, right? It is easy. Sans adversity. It's easy for anyone to look like $1 million. My dad would always levy at Mike Tyson the fact that, listen here, when you're fighting cans, of course you're going to look. Everybody can look amazing, right? Without competition. Anybody can look $1 million. But I don't think that's the whole story, Sean. I don't think that's the whole story. And here's why, yeah, because on the odd occasion, when he has been tested this year, see Monaco quali, Sector 3, see Suzuka, see Singapore. No longer is he starting to make mistakes in the face of adversity. That was like 2016, 2017, right, when he was a young pup. It's not the same Max Verstappen. And again, I like to do the insight and forecasting. I don't want to just state the obvious, what everyone can see. And again, with my forecasting cap, thinking about 24 and 25 and 26 even, if Lewis and Charles and Alonso hang around that long, I'm not sure. Listen, by the day, my hopes for somebody, one of those guys being able to challenge Max Verstappen diminishes, because I just think he's harvesting tools in the meantime. Do you know what I mean? He's not just like, he's staying busy and staying ready and upskilling in the interim, and that's what concerns me. I'd like to see a Max Verstappen mistake, as brilliant as he is. What would give me more comfort as far as being a Lewis Hamilton fan and having hopes for Lewis Hamilton or any one of those other guys being able to take a championship off of Max Verstappen over the next 3 seasons. I'd like to see make a couple of mistakes, be a bit fallible, because he looks infallible at the moment. He does. Although you make a very good point, Sean. NASA, as much as I would like to see Lewis win the 8th or the 9th, deep down, watching Lewis and Max again is going to open up unhealed wounds for many. Oh, NASA. It is, isn't it? It's going to get techie. But does NASA? Let me counter there. I hear you, and I don't disagree. However, if we prioritize, here's where I am. I am an F1 fan first before I'm a Lewis fan or a Max fan or whatever. So is that not me getting a battle for first, second, and third between the two best drivers of their respective generations? That's like my Christmas and birthday all come at once. Okay, so all the toxicity and whatever, like I can manage my notifications and filter a lot of that out. Like I don't really, you've heard me talk about the toxicity of F1 social media ad infinitum. I will deal with that. I would rather deal with that and get ourselves a competitive championship than not have to deal with the toxicity of F1 social media and have another boring championship. That's all I'll say on that, NASA. But I hear you, and it's a really good point, bruv. It's a very, very good point. FIA super license points. The tracks, the teams, etc. are all European based. You won't succeed in open world unless you are across the pond. And that segues very nicely, Will.i.am, to Andretti Global, who in the very first instance are planning to have their base out of North America, which is an interesting point. Because when you hear people talk about why Mr. Michael Andretti, who was a very good bloody driver, by the way, why his career failed in F1, a lot of people apportion it to the fact that he took the same approach then as he's planning to now for Andretti Global, that he didn't move, that he was traveling from North America. The calendar, by the way, then wasn't North America. I think there was Phoenix, maybe that. I think there was like one North American Grand Prix, and it wasn't a mainstay. I remember it flicking on and off the calendar. So he was just like, can you imagine? Like Monaco one week and then Hungary the next, and he'd like go home to North America in between time. Taxing. I remember Michael, I only just learned a couple of years back that Michael Andretti had serious racecraft. He was a very sick driver. I remember him in like alongside Senna in 1990 or whenever it was. And I just thought, he came in on such bluster. It was like, oh my God, Andretti's here. Andretti could beat Senna. He's that good. And then he was just rubbish. Okay, so he had reliability issues, but he just wasn't in an F1 car. It just didn't work out for him. He didn't. I remember it. It's just like, Andretti, he's not very good. And the joke is that perception has lasted till today for me. Anytime I hear Andretti incorrectly, like I just go, just turn my nose up because of that nightmare season that Michael had. And again, after the fact, a lot of people say that he was just, although it was ill-fated, although he fell victim and foul of a lot of unfortunate stuff as far as the reliability of that car, didn't help himself. You gotta be just move to Monaco, surely. And you know what, Will? That's another thing where when we're talking, I'm dotting around here massively, guys. But this is a chat that concerns me when we're talking about the viabilities of Lewis Hamilton as an 8-time champion. As you get older, listen, I'm right around Lewis Hamilton's age. I don't travel well, pedalers. Went to Jamaica the other day and I was just like, oh. Like in the airport, I was like, oh my God, this is so long. My feet hurt, my back hurt. Like it was just long. I hated the travel. You just don't travel as well. Like when I was 20, like I'd stay up and watch the Mayweather fights and just wake up. You know what I mean? Wake up on like 2 hours sleep and just crack on. Can't do that anymore. Hence why I know for a fact that Lewis can't be in his prime, bro. Like I'm not saying that he can't drive a car well still, that he can't win races, but I think to win a championship over the course of 24 races in less than a 52-week calendar year, flipping Nora, man, that's a big ask. At nearly 40 years old, against a 26, 27-year-old Max Verstappen coming into his prime, tooling up every single day of the week, getting stronger. And it's a big ass pedal. I'm not saying he can't do it. I'm not saying that he can't do it, but you know, it'll be a struggle. Matthew says, Skillerini, this is a different Skillerini. I can't see Skillerinis. You guys are going back and forth. Oh, look, Lewis gave me that vibe at Mexico's Grand Prix. Said that he can. JR ain't a factor. Go on and Skillerini. Let me go to Skillerny even. Says George Russell ain't a factor. I've seen it too many times when Lewis has a car to fight for wins. None of his teammates are close. I mean, ostensibly at the moment, that would seem to be the case. Look, Lewis. I know Lewis, and he gave me that vibe at Mexico Grand Prix. He said he can fight Max when he gets his car better and he's ready to beat. So Skillerny is the thing. And Lewis is never going to tell you any different, is he? Is Lewis Hamilton is a 7-time champion. He's incentive. I mean, he wouldn't still be racing. And I'm one of those who believe that had he won in 2021, that he probably would have hung up his Nomex. I'd be worried if Lewis told you any different. I mean, he wouldn't still be racing if he thought differently, right? But the gift and the curse with sports, with athletes at the highest level, though, is because this is all that they've known. This is all they've ever done from when they were as young as they can remember, right? So they have to trick themselves. Even if it wasn't the case, Lewis would have, even if he knew for certain, right, that he was never going to win another Grand Prix, even let alone another championship. Lewis, because he's still competing, this goes for all of them, Alonso too, particularly because he's at that age, at a similar age as well. These sports guys, these drivers have to trick themselves into believing that they can still bang, right? Even Lance Stroll, this is the game, this is the internal mind game that they have to play. Lance Stroll has to believe that at some point he can become world champion. He just has to. That's a very different claim, a massive reach as versus a Lewis Hamilton becoming 8-time champion. But it's a difference in extents and not kinds. You get it? He has to. He has to tell himself that. I mean, you couldn't still be racing and believe any different. And this is why a lot of these guys, imagine Mansell probably went a couple of years too long. Damo, similar thing. Some would argue that Michael Schumacher might have gone a season or two too long. This is why the tendencies for sports stars, F1, boxing, athletics, whatever, it's hard for them to turn that off, right? Inevitably, the vast majority of them go far too long and don't retire as early as they should have, because that's all they've always told them. That's what's worked. It's always worked. No, I can push through. I can do it. I'm not too old. Like this is what they've always. It's this kind of like mental sleight of hand. It's weird, really, really weird. If you're around professional athletes enough, you'll see, and especially those ones who are getting to that age. Tom Brady, I think Tom Brady went probably a couple seasons too long. He did, but he's so, like Lewis, he's so stubborn and so resilient mentally that it's almost like that's the trick that his mind can play on him, right? Can convince his mental, that his physical, that he's still in there. It's techie. Skillerny, it's very techie. Right, let's have a look at some of your latest ones. NASA, in terms of drivers and cars, only Merc can challenge RB. So you say that, NASA, but listen, I've had conversations with people in the know, and they say if anybody's going to challenge Red Bull, that will be the papaya car of McLaren next year and not Mercedes, because they're closer now, aren't they? You'll see it around here. Guaranteed. Mercedes will do well. Listen, if I'm predicting, I went Max, Lewis, Lando, my predictions, but the 2 and the 3 potentially interchangeable. Potentially. Matthew Brown, I agree with you, pressure, but that only compounded by him having to nurse a hurt car with brake issues. Oh, exactly. Okay, so we're talking about pressure, Max Verstappen again. So the theory goes something like Max, you can't get a proper read on Max's level when he hasn't faced adversity. I think you need to caveat that with this. He hasn't faced adversity in his current form. In 2021, is that not adversity? That's like the worst type of adversity. Well, having Lewis Hamilton breathing down your neck for like 22 races or whatever, like, holy smoke. Did you guys watch Mexico and Cota and Silverstone? Like, mate, these two were racing head to head every single race. Okay, so Max made some mistakes late on, particularly at Jeddah and in quali Q3, sector 3 of Q3. Like, he made some mistakes, but he was like 10 years old, man. I mean, let's do that over and see how he gets on now. Listen, all racing drivers will make mistakes, and Max Verstappen was prone to when he first came onto the scene, but I'm not seeing them so much now. Now, you can argue every single day of the week that that's potentially a function of adversity or the lack thereof, but we won't know just yet. We won't not know just yet. I will say this, anytime he's experienced or faced micro adversity, see Monaco, Sector 3 quali, see Singapore, see, there's another one, isn't there? Suzuka, I suppose, wasn't necessarily proper adversity, but he's all right, chaps. I'll say that he's not a bad driver. I think we broadly as a community underestimate Max's ability to face and fight adversity. That's my prediction. Menace, Lewis will beat Max because Max is not really battle tested. Oh, Menace, I just answered that one, I think. Sean, you make my point. We'll see. I'm not even going to go back and forth on this anymore. We'll have to revisit this at some point next year. Hopefully, early next year when Mercedes have put together a car. Hopefully, Black Hammer. If Max were making mistakes while going unchallenged, he'd be shot. Oh, Black Hammer, you're so... Peter, Charles he's not getting a very good rap of it at the moment, is he? He's just not. James says, interesting question to discuss might be where Daddy's backing for Lance meets the real world situation. Oh gosh, it's too late on for me to discuss that. You know what, the last chat I had with Mr. Peter Windsor, GOAT broadcaster, he leveled that question at me and I didn't really know the answer, if I'm honest. Even if I putting my business brain on for a second. Yeah, I think Daddy Stroll's going to have to trade out Stroll Jr. at some point. Just far too invested. But they've got Drugovich, haven't they, waiting in the wings? When they start to see, if they start to see Drugovich's lap times, if they see that his lap times are comparable to Lance's with such little experience comparatively to Lance, that's going to be like, I think Lawrence will move on that, you know, genuinely. I don't think he'll stunt Felipe's growth. This is business, man. Don't mix family and business, as they say. Patrick Cameo are giving Max too much credit. Reference his comms traffic when Luce was catching him. So Patrick, you know, I can speak to that. So Break interviewed Max Verstappen at Cota, I want to say, and he asked him about this very question, right? Like sometimes you get a bit rude over the radio to GP Giampiero Lambiase. What's that all about? And Max countered, well, sometimes in the heat of the moment, etiquette and manners isn't something that you have time for, right? I think he was just mad. Max can be a bit rogue over the radio. I think if you if you closed your eyes and just listened to Max on the radio, you wouldn't know how much control he exerts over that car, right? Like he's 99% of the time, that dude is in like god tier levels of control of that car. So I wouldn't. That's not something I'd read too much. There'll be more outbursts from Max Verstappen, of course, when it gets a bit techie and a bit closer over the next couple of seasons. There will absolutely be more outbursts. There will be more troughs than there have been peaks over the last couple of years, of course. But I wouldn't read too much into those radio messages. Does he know that Lewis is a threat? Absolutely, but bloody no, Lolly, the Stroll tweet. I was a bit harsh to Lance yesterday. I saw a picture of Lance. I think I've seen it before. Saw a picture of Lance and those eyebrows. I've got the same eyebrows. But like his face, I just thought, hold on, is that dude, is he not masquerading as the Incredible Hulk? So I just Googled very quickly the Incredible Hulk. I saw these comparison pictures between Lance Stroll and the Incredible Hulk. I was like, nah, I have to tweet this out. Gotta go. Oh, Frank, you're a legend, bro. Thank you so much. Yeah, enjoy the race weekend as well. Jean, I don't underestimate Max. Think he's 1 or 2. I think we are watching greatness in Max. I want to see him have to bring his best out. That competition will bring out the best in him. Only 44 will fight. This is true. Henry, to beat Max, you need to be half a second you know, Henry. I know what you mean. A half a second is a bit of an exaggeration, but I don't think you're a million miles away. You know, I've heard people in the know say similar, and I don't know if oh, you guys are killing me. I don't know if Mercedes are going to. I don't know. There's a lot of speculation and conjecture, and I'll go another 5 minutes, guys, and then I will run away. The GOAT was stomping his doorstep. Panic was setting in. Good show, Patrick. Patrick, you're going to hear Max shouting and screaming over the radio. That doesn't mean that he won't win a lot of the races still, though. It's really good, that Max fella. He's really good. As if I haven't said it enough, Menace Russell is 25 in his prime. Prodigy and Lewis is beating the brakes of him. That's how dare you compare George Russell to Max Verstappen. Menace. I'm not having that. George is brilliant, but Max is different, a disruptor. Brazil should be the last race in the period. I know it used to be, didn't it? 2007, 2008 was the climax. I didn't hate it then. I know what you mean, but we are being resistant to change, right? Harking back for the days of old, but I digress. Right then, peddlers, I think I've talked long enough. You guys have been legends. Enjoy the race weekend. Remember, it's sprint Grand Prix weekend, so there'll be action later on today. Let me quote the times to you guys very quickly, if they're correcto mundo in my calendar. Right, so I have probably practiced by now. Oh no, practice is, 4:30 British Standard Time for FP1 British Standard Time. So I make that 10:30 Eastern for those of you in the States. And then qualifying, so qualifying for the race proper will be 1800 hours British Standard Time. Make that 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Free practice 2 will kick off at 2:30 p.m. on Saturday. Make that 10:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And then the sprint race kicks off at 6:30 British Standard Time on Saturday. Make that... My maths has evaded me. Of course. 2:30 Eastern Time, Cameron. Get your life together. And the race kicks off at 5 o'clock on... I think that's a bit earlier than usual, to be fair. 5 p.m. Sunday British Standard Time. Make that 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Mertz credentials compared to... Oh, you Menace, you're not having it, are you? You just when I thought I was out, they bring me back in. Tom, I completely forgot the sprint race in his lap. Did he? Oh, mate, I'm telling you, every time you turn on a camera, and Tomo agreed with me on this, every time you turn on a camera, especially when you go live, you will say some rogue things. I've said very many this broadcast. When you watch it back, I want to try and do a segment called Dead Wrong at some point, when we just go back and look at all the noddy things that I've said over the course of a week, many of which, if not all of which, will be completely off the mark. Peter. Right, guys, I'm going to run. I need to go and do something. I hope you've enjoyed that. Again, I will try and jump on after the race on Sunday, maybe after the qualifying tonight. There's not a stream scheduled, but if something kicks off and we've got stuff to talk about, I will be here. If it's boring as I expect it may be, then probably not. But between now and next time, peddlers, hug somebody you love, drink some water, and as always, remember to look but never stare.